I didn't come to Silver Creek to find a wife. I came to watch the snow bury my mistakes. The wooden shack stood at the edge of town like a broken tooth, half collapsed under the weight of Montana winter. Smoke barely rose from its chimney. That meant no wood. No wood meant no heat. No heat meant those children inside were freezing. I knew because I had been watching for 3 days. My name is Nathaniel Hartwell, and I am 45 years old. I own the largest silver mine in Montana. My home in Helena has 16 rooms, most of them empty. My bank account could feed 100 families for a decade. But none of that matters because 2 years ago, I destroyed the only friendship I ever had. The wind cut through my coat as I stood in the shadow of the general store. I pulled my hat lower. No one in Silver Creek knew my face. That was intentional. I dressed like a cattle trader passing through. Plain coat, worn boots, a stranger with no name. Inside that shack, a woman named Catherine Carter was making an impossible choice. I knew her name because the detective I hired had told me everything. 32 years old, widow for 1 month, 9 children, ages 3 to 14. No money, no food, no hope. Her husband had been Elijah Carter, my former business partner, my best friend, the man I betrayed. The door of the shack opened. A boy stumbled out, maybe 14, thin as a wire. He carried an empty bucket toward the town well. His shirt hung loose on his frame. His hands shook from cold or hunger, perhaps both. This was Samuel, the eldest, the one trying to be the man of the house now that his father was gone. I watched him pump the handle with desperate strength. The well was frozen. No water came. He tried again. Again. His shoulders began to shake, and I realized he was crying. Everything inside me wanted to walk over, to help, to fix this. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because the moment Catherine Carter learned my name, she would know. She would know that her husband died in a mine collapse in Wyoming because I fired him. Because when the silver market crashed in 1883, I had to close one of my 3 mines. 50 men lost their jobs. Elijah Carter was one of them. He went to Wyoming looking for work. Any work. The mine there was dangerous, everyone knew it. But desperate men take dangerous jobs. 3 weeks ago, the tunnel collapsed. Elijah was crushed under 1,000 tons of rock. They never recovered his body. The detective's report sat in my coat pocket. Catherine had sold everything. Furniture, dishes, her wedding ring. Last week she tried to sell her coat, but no one would buy it. It was too worn. Now she was begging door to door for scraps. The town pitied her, but pity doesn't fill stomachs. I had come to Silver Creek with a plan, a simple plan. Leave money at the church, an anonymous donation, enough to get them through winter. Then disappear. Go back to Helena and die quietly. Because I am dying. 6 months ago, a doctor in Boston examined my heart. The same heart condition that killed my father at 48. Enlarged. Weakening. He said I might have a year, maybe 2 if I was lucky. Surgery existed. Experimental. Dangerous. 70% of patients died on the table. Even if I survived, it would cost $3,000 and require months of recovery in Boston. I told the doctor no. What was the point? My wife Abigail had died 10 years ago in a riding accident. Our son Henry died with her. I had no one. No reason to fight for more time. But then the letter arrived. It came 3 weeks after Elijah's death, forwarded from my office. The envelope was stained and crumpled as if it had traveled a long distance. Inside was a single page in Elijah's handwriting. Nathaniel, it read, if you are reading this, I am dead. I don't blame you for what happened. The mine closure was business. You did what you had to do. But I need you to promise me something. Take care of Catherine and the children, not because you owe me, but because you are the only man I trust. You are a better man than you believe. Prove it. Your friend, Elijah. I read that letter 40 times. Each time the words cut deeper. He didn't blame me, he should have. He died because of me, and he spent his final thoughts forgiving me. That's when I decided to come to Silver Creek. But standing here now, watching that boy cry at a frozen well, I realized my plan was worthless. Money wouldn't fix this. These children didn't need charity. They needed a father. And Catherine didn't need a donation. She needed a partner. The idea was insane, impossible. But it was the only thing that made sense. I would marry her. Not for love. I didn't believe in love anymore. Not for myself. But for duty. For redemption. For Elijah. I would give these children my name, my home, my fortune. I would raise them as my own. And when my heart finally gave out, they would inherit everything. It was the only way to keep my promise. Samuel gave up on the well and walked back toward the shack, bucket still empty. I waited until he disappeared inside. Then I stepped out of the shadows and walked toward the town square. The market was closing for the day. Vendors packed their goods into carts. A few townspeople hurried home before dark. And there, near the church steps, I saw her. Catherine Carter knelt in the snow. She wasn't begging. Her hands were folded in prayer. Her head was bowed. She wore a thin shawl over a dress that had been mended so many times I could see the different colored threads. Her face was pale, her lips cracked from cold. But even in her desperation, there was something unbroken about her. Dignity. She finished her prayer and stood. Our eyes met across the square. For a moment, neither of us moved. She didn't know me, but something in my expression must have told her I was different from the others. Not a townsperson. Not someone passing judgment. I walked toward her slowly. She didn't retreat, but her hand moved to the small knife at her belt. Smart. A woman alone had to be careful. I stopped 10 feet away and removed my hat. "Ma'am," I said. My voice came out rougher than I intended. "I wonder if I might speak with you." She studied me with sharp eyes. Green eyes, I noticed, the color of spring grass which seemed impossible in all this winter gray. "If you're looking for charity," she said, "I have none to give." "I'm not." I took a breath. "I'm looking for a wife." The words hung in the frozen air between us. Her expression didn't change. She didn't laugh or look shocked. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, like someone evaluating a horse at auction. "You don't look like a man who needs to buy a wife," she said. "I'm not buying," I replied. "I'm offering a contract." Now she did react. Her eyebrows lifted. "A contract." "Yes, ma'am. Room and board for you and your children. Food, clothing, education, medical care if needed. In exchange, you would manage my household and be my legal wife." "How many children do you have?" she asked. "None." "Then why do you need a wife?" The honest answer was complicated. The simple answer was closer to the truth. "Because I'm dying," I said, "and I don't want to die alone." Something flickered in her eyes. Not pity. Understanding, maybe. She knew what it meant to face death. She had buried a husband already. "What's your name?" she asked. This was the moment. The moment she would know. The moment everything would either begin or end. "Nathaniel Hartwell." I watched her face carefully. Watched for the flash of recognition, the anger, the accusation. Instead, her expression went completely still, like ice forming over water. "I know who you are," she said quietly. My stomach dropped. "You do?" "My husband carried a photograph of you in his wallet, you and he standing outside the mine. 1879, I think. He talked about you often." She paused. "He talked about you the day before he left for Wyoming." I couldn't breathe. "What did he say?" "He said you were a good man in a bad situation. He said he understood why you had to close the mine. He said he hoped you wouldn't blame yourself." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. "And then he made me promise something." "What?" "That if anything happened to him, I would find you, and I would let you help." The world tilted. Elijah had known. Somehow he had known this would happen, that he would die, that I would come. "He wanted me to take care of you," I whispered. "Yes." Catherine took a step closer. "But I will not accept charity, Mr. Hartwell." If you want to honor my husband's request, then give me terms I can accept. A real marriage, a real contract, not pity." I nodded slowly. "Room, board, education for all 9 children until they reach 18. You will have full authority over the household. I will not interfere with how you raise them. In return, you will manage the home and fulfill the legal obligations of a wife. But I will not demand anything you are not willing to give." She understood what I meant. I was not asking for her body, not asking for love, just presence, partnership. "And if you die?" she asked. "Everything I own goes to you and the children, the house, the mines, the money, all of it. Why would you do this?" I met her eyes. "Because your husband saved my life once, and I failed to save his." For the first time, emotion cracked through her composure. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. "When?" she asked. 15 years ago. A tunnel collapse at the Helena mine. He pulled me out of the rubble. I promised him that day that I would take care of his family if anything ever happened to him. I failed. I let 2 years pass without finding you, without keeping my word. I can't bring him back, but I can do this." Catherine closed her eyes. When she opened them again, the tears were gone. "I accept," she said, "but on one condition." "Name it." "You will never lie to me. Not about money, not about your health, not about your intentions. If this marriage is a contract, then honesty is the foundation." "Agreed." "Then we have a deal, Mr. Hartwell." She extended her hand. I took it. Her fingers were ice cold, but her grip was firm. We stood there in the snow, 2 strangers making a bargain that would change everything. The church bell rang 6 times. Evening was falling. Around us, the town of Silver Creek went about its business, unaware that in this moment, a widow and a dying man had just made a promise neither of them fully understood. "When?" she asked. "Tomorrow. I'll arrange everything with the minister. Bring the children to the church at noon." She nodded. "They won't understand." "I know. They won't trust you." "I know. Samuel will hate you." I smiled sadly. "I know." She studied me one last time, searching for something. I don't know if she found it, but she must have seen enough because she turned and walked back toward the shack without another word. I stood alone in the square as darkness fell. Snow began to fall, soft and silent. Somewhere in the distance a dog barked. A door slammed. Normal sounds of a normal evening in a normal town. But nothing about this was normal. I had just agreed to marry a woman I didn't love, to raise 9 children I'd never met, to build a family on the foundation of my greatest failure. And somehow, it felt like the first honest thing I had done in 10 years. I pulled Elijah's letter from my pocket and read it one more time in the fading light. "You are a better man than you believe. Prove it." "All right, old friend," I thought. "I'll try." The snow fell harder. I turned up my collar and walked toward the hotel where I had been staying. Tomorrow, I would become a husband again, a father of 9, a man with a reason to live, or a man with a reason to die trying. Either way, the promise would be kept. The church smelled of old wood and cold stone. Morning light filtered through windows that hadn't been cleaned in months, casting pale shadows across empty pews. I stood at the altar, waiting, my hands clasped behind my back to hide the trembling. I had been awake all night. The hotel room had been too quiet, too full of ghosts. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Abigail's face, heard her laugh, felt the weight of our son in my arms. They had been dead for 10 years, but grief has no calendar. It lives in the spaces between heartbeats, waiting for moments like this to remind you what you lost. Was I betraying them? By marrying again? By bringing another woman into the house we built together? No. Abigail would have understood. She had always been practical. "Don't waste your life mourning me, Nathaniel," she had said once, years before the accident. We had been talking about something trivial, but the words stayed with me. "Promise me you'll live, really live." I hadn't kept that promise. For 10 years I existed. I worked. I managed the mines. I signed papers and attended meetings and made money. But I didn't live. Maybe this was my chance. Not to replace what I lost, but to become something new. The church door opened. Catherine entered first. She wore the same dress from yesterday, but she had washed it somehow. It was still patched and faded, but clean. Her hair was pulled back in a simple bun. No flowers. No veil. This was not a celebration. This was a transaction. Behind her came the children, 9 of them, arranged by height like stairs. The oldest, Samuel, stood at the back, his jaw set, his eyes hard. He was 14 but looked older. Hunger and responsibility aged people fast. Next to him was Emma, 13, clutching the hand of a younger girl. Then the others, descending in size down to the smallest, a little girl of maybe 3, carried by one of the middle children. They all stared at me with varying degrees of confusion and fear. I had known this moment would be difficult. But seeing them, seeing the reality of 9 lives I was about to take responsibility for, the weight of it nearly crushed me. The minister, Reverend Hayes, stood behind the altar. He was 70 if he was a day, with a white beard and kind eyes. Catherine must have spoken to him this morning because he showed no surprise at the situation. In small towns, I supposed, desperate arrangements were not uncommon. "Mr. Hartwell," the Reverend said, nodding. "Shall we begin?" I looked at Catherine. She looked at me. For a moment I thought she might change her mind. Run. Take the children and disappear. It would have been the reasonable thing to do. I was a stranger, a man with secrets, a man who had hurt her family, even if unintentionally. But she didn't run. She stepped forward and stood beside me at the altar. "Children," she said softly, "come closer." They hesitated. Samuel whispered something to Emma. Emma whispered to the next child. A ripple of confusion passed through the line, but slowly they shuffled forward until they formed a semicircle around us. The littlest girl, the one being carried, started to cry, a soft hiccuping sound. The child holding her, a girl of maybe 5, patted her head and whispered, "Shh, Rose, it's okay." Rose. I made a mental note. That was the baby's name. "Before we proceed," Reverend Hayes said, "I must ask, do the children understand what is happening?" Catherine looked down at Samuel. "Do you want to explain, or should I?" Samuel's jaw tightened. "She's marrying him because we're starving. That's what's happening." The bluntness of it hit like a slap. Several of the younger children gasped. Emma put a hand over her mouth, but Catherine didn't flinch. "Yes," she said, "that's part of it, but not all of it." "What's the other part?" Samuel demanded. His voice cracked with anger. "That he's rich? That he can buy us?" "That he knew your father," Catherine said quietly. "That your father trusted him, and that I am choosing to trust him too." "Papa trusted a lot of people," Samuel shot back, "and they all let him die." The church went silent. Even Reverend Hayes looked uncomfortable. But I understood. This boy had been carrying the weight of his family for a month. He had tried to be the man, the provider, the protector, and he had failed. Now a stranger was stepping in, and it felt like an insult to everything he had tried to do. I stepped forward. "You're right," I said. Samuel blinked. "What?" "You're right. I did let your father die, not directly, but I made choices that led to his death. I fired him because I had to close a mine. He went to Wyoming because he needed work. The mine in Wyoming was dangerous. He knew it. I knew it. Everyone knew it. But desperate men take desperate jobs, and he died because of that desperation." I paused. "So yes, I am responsible, and I am here because I can't bring him back, but I can make sure his children never have to make desperate choices." Samuel stared at me. I saw the hatred in his eyes, but I also saw something else. Confusion. Maybe even a sliver of respect. Because I hadn't lied. I hadn't tried to make myself the hero. I had admitted the truth. "I don't want your money," Samuel said, but his voice was quieter now. "I know. You want your father back. I can't give you that, but I can give you a future, and I can promise that I will never lie to you. Not about him. Not about anything." Emma spoke up, her voice trembling. "Are you going to be our father now?" The question broke something inside me. I looked at this young girl, barely 13, trying to understand a world that had taken her father and was now giving her a stranger. "No," I said gently. "I can't be your father. You already had one, and no one can replace him. But I can be something else. I can be the man who keeps you safe, the man who makes sure you have food and warmth and a place to belong. If that's enough, then I will do everything in my power to be that man." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She nodded and looked down at her feet. One of the younger boys, maybe 7, raised his hand like he was in school. He had dark hair and serious eyes. "Yes?" I said. "What's your name again?" Despite everything, I almost smiled. "Nathaniel. Nathaniel Hartwell. But you can call me whatever feels right to you." "Can I call you Mr. Nathaniel?" "That's fine." Another child, a girl of about 10, spoke up. She had a sweet face and blonde hair. "Do we have to leave our house?" "Yes," I said. "But you'll have a new house, a bigger one, with enough rooms for everyone." "Will there be food?" This from a small boy, maybe 6, with wide eyes. "Yes, as much as you need." "Every day?" The question gutted me. What kind of life had these children been living that they had to ask if there would be food every day? "Every day," I promised. 3 meals, and snacks if you want them. The little boy smiled for the first time. It was a small, tentative thing, but it was there. Reverend Hayes cleared his throat. "I believe we should proceed, unless there are objections." Everyone looked at Samuel. He was the oldest, the leader. If he said no, the others would follow. I could see the war happening behind his eyes. Pride versus survival. Anger versus hope. Finally he spoke. "Do it." Not a blessing, but not a refusal either. Reverend Hayes opened his Bible. "We are gathered here in the sight of God to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony. Though the circumstances are unusual, the vows are the same. Do you, Nathaniel Hartwell, take Catherine Carter to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, until death do you part?" "I do." "And do you, Catherine Carter, take Nathaniel Hartwell to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold in sickness and in health for richer or poorer, until death do you part?" Catherine looked at me, really looked at me, and in her eyes I saw the same thing I felt. Fear, uncertainty, but also determination. We were 2 people making an impossible choice because there was no other choice left. "I do," she said. "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife." No one moved, no one clapped. The children just stared. Catherine and I stood side by side, legally bound, practically strangers. Reverend Hayes closed his Bible. "You may kiss the bride or not. Given the circumstances, I leave that to your discretion." I looked at Catherine. She gave a small shake of her head. "Not yet. Maybe never." That was fine. This wasn't about romance. "Thank you, Reverend," I said. I reached into my coat and pulled out an envelope. "For your trouble." He took it, glanced inside, and his eyebrows rose. "This is far too much." "For the church," I said, "and for keeping this quiet. I'd prefer the town not know my business." He nodded slowly. "Of course." I turned to Catherine. "I have a wagon outside. If you can gather whatever belongings you have, we'll leave within the hour." "We don't have much," she said. "That's all right." The children followed us out of the church into the bright winter morning. The sun was out for the first time in days, making the snow sparkle like crushed diamonds. The wagon waited at the bottom of the steps, piled with supplies I had purchased that morning. Blankets, coats, food for the journey. As we walked toward the shack to collect their things, a boy appeared from nowhere. He was maybe 12, thin, with brown hair and frightened eyes. He wore clothes that were too big for him, likely hand-me-downs from someone else. "Mrs. Carter," the boy said, breathless. "Is it true? Are you leaving?" Catherine stopped. "Yes, Daniel, we're leaving today." "Can I come?" The question surprised everyone. Catherine blinked. What? Please. I can work. I can help. I won't eat much. He looked at the ground. I got nowhere else to go. Daniel lives at the church orphanage, Catherine explained to me. His parents died last year. Elijah used to bring him food sometimes. I looked at the boy, saw myself in him. I had grown up with parents, but they had been cold, distant people. I knew what it felt like to be unwanted. How old are you? I asked. 12, sir. Can you read? A little. Can you work hard? Yes, sir. I looked at Catherine. This was her call. She studied the boy for a long moment, then nodded. Get your things, she said. You have 10 minutes. Daniel's face lit up. He ran back toward the church without another word. Samuel watched him go, then looked at me with something almost like approval. You didn't have to say yes. Neither did your mother, I replied. But here we are. The shack was even worse inside than I had imagined. One room, a dirt floor, a broken stove. The children slept on thin pallets laid directly on the ground. There were no toys, no books, nothing that spoke of childhood. It took less than 5 minutes to gather everything they owned. A few changes of clothes, a single pot, a worn Bible. That was it. An entire family's possessions fit in one small crate. Daniel returned carrying a cloth sack. Inside, I would later learn, was a single extra shirt, a wooden cross, and a small knife. The knife, he told me weeks later, had been a gift from Elijah, the only gift he had ever received. We loaded everything into the wagon. The children climbed in, huddling together under the new blankets I had bought. Catherine sat up front with me. Daniel squeezed in between two of the middle children, looking terrified and grateful at the same time. As I took the reins, Samuel appeared at my elbow. Mr. Hartwell, he said quietly, if you hurt my mother or my brothers and sisters, I will kill you. He meant it. I could see it in his eyes. If I hurt them, I said, I'll let you. He nodded once and climbed into the wagon. The journey to my estate took 4 hours. We traveled north through pine forests heavy with snow. The children were quiet at first, but gradually they began to whisper to each other. I heard fragments of conversation. Do you think there will really be food? Mama wouldn't lie. I'm scared. Me too. Catherine sat beside me, silent, her hands folded in her lap. I wanted to say something, to ease the tension, but I didn't know what. So we rode in silence, two people bound by law but separated by grief and circumstance. Around hour 3, one of the younger girls started crying. Not Rose the baby, another one, maybe 8 years old. She had brown hair and big eyes, and she was shaking. Catherine turned around. Grace, what's wrong? The girl didn't answer, just cried harder. Emma leaned over and whispered something to Catherine. Catherine's face softened. She hasn't spoken since Elijah died, Catherine said to me quietly. Not a word. The doctor said it was shock, that maybe she would talk again when she felt safe. Grace. I remembered now. The quiet one, the broken one. I pulled the wagon to a stop, climbed down, walked to the back where Grace sat huddled under a blanket, tears streaming down her face. I knelt in the snow so we were eye level. Grace, I said softly, you don't have to talk, not to me, not to anyone. But I want you to know something. You're safe now. I promise. She looked at me with those huge, terrified eyes, and then, slowly, she reached out and touched my hand, just for a second, then pulled back. It wasn't much, but it was something. I climbed back into the wagon, and we continued. Finally, as the sun began to set, we crested a hill, and there it was. Hartwell Estate. Not a mansion, but a large farmhouse surrounded by barns and outbuildings. Fields stretched in every direction, buried under snow. Smoke rose from the chimney. This is it? Samuel asked. His voice was awed despite himself. This is home, I said. We pulled up to the main house. I had sent word ahead to Mrs. Brennan, the housekeeper who had been with me for 20 years. She stood on the porch, a stout woman with gray hair and a stern face that hid a kind heart. "Mrs. Brennan," I said, climbing down, "this is Catherine, my wife, and these are her children, our children now." Mrs. Brennan's eyes went wide, but she recovered quickly. "Welcome, Mrs. Hartwell. Children, let's get you inside. It's freezing." The children climbed out of the wagon slowly, staring at the house like it might disappear. I could see them counting windows, estimating rooms, trying to understand that this was real. We went inside. The warmth hit immediately. A fire roared in the main room. The smell of cooking drifted from the kitchen. Mrs. Brennan had prepared soup and bread, as I had asked. The children stood in a cluster, afraid to touch anything. But then the smallest ones saw the fire and gravitated toward it like moths. Soon they were all gathered around the hearth, holding out their hands to the heat. Catherine stood beside me, taking it all in. Her expression was unreadable. "There are 4 bedrooms upstairs," I said. "I thought the girls could share 2, the boys 2. And there's a smaller room off the kitchen for Daniel, if that's acceptable." "It's more than acceptable," she whispered. "It's miraculous." Dinner was quiet, but intense. The children ate like they had never seen food before, probably because they hadn't. Not like this. Not enough to be full. I watched them carefully, making sure no one ate too fast and got sick. After dinner, Mrs. Brennan showed everyone to their rooms. I hung back, letting Catherine lead. I wanted them to feel this was their space, not mine. When the children were settled, Catherine came back downstairs. She found me in the study, staring at paperwork I had no intention of reading. "They're asleep," she said, "all of them, even Samuel." "Good. Thank you, for today, for all of this." "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do." She hesitated. "There's something I need to tell you." My heart sank. Here it was. The moment she would say she made a mistake, that she wanted to leave. But instead she said, "I knew who you were from the moment you approached me yesterday." I frowned. "You said Elijah had a photograph." "He did. But that's not how I knew." She took a breath. "Elijah sent me a letter, 3 days before he died. It arrived last week. In it, he told me that if anything happened to him, I should find Nathaniel Hartwell. He said you would help. He said I should trust you." I stood slowly. He knew he was going to die? I think so. The mine in Wyoming was collapsing. Everyone knew it. But he stayed because we needed the money. Her voice broke. "He died so we could eat." I crossed the room, and for the first time I touched her, just a hand on her shoulder. "He died because I fired him. Don't let me pretend this is noble. I'm here because I owe him, because I failed him." She looked up at me. "You're here because you're trying to be a good man. That's enough." We stood there in the study, 2 damaged people trying to build something from the wreckage of their lives. "I should tell you something too," I said. "I'm dying. My heart. The doctor says I have maybe a year." She didn't look surprised. "I know. You told me yesterday. There's a surgery in Boston. It might save me. But it's expensive and dangerous." "Then you should do it." "Why?" "Because those children upstairs need you. They don't know it yet. But they will." I wanted to believe her, but I knew the truth. Surgery or no surgery, my time was limited. This house, this family, it was all temporary. A brief chapter before the end. But maybe that was enough. "Get some rest," I said. "Tomorrow we'll figure out the details. School, clothing, everything." She nodded and left. I sat alone in the study for a long time. Outside, snow began to fall again. The house creaked and settled. Upstairs, I could hear the soft sounds of children sleeping. Safe, warm, fed. I had married a stranger, taken in 9 children and an orphan boy, tied my dying life to people who had every reason to hate me. And somehow, for the first time in 10 years, I felt like I had a reason to wake up tomorrow. Elijah, I thought, looking at the ceiling. I hope I'm doing this right. The fire burned low. The clock struck midnight. And in a farmhouse in Montana, a new family slept under one roof, held together by a promise written in snow and signed with hope. Morning came with the sound of chaos. I woke to shouting, children's voices, high and panicked, echoing through the house. For a moment, disoriented in the pale dawn light, I thought I was back in Helena 10 years ago, that Abigail was downstairs making breakfast, that Henry was running through the halls laughing. Then reality crashed back. The voices belonged to 9 frightened children who had woken up in a strange house, unsure if yesterday had been real or a desperate dream. I dressed quickly and went downstairs. The scene in the kitchen stopped me cold. Mrs. Brennan stood at the stove, bewildered, surrounded by children who were staring at plates of eggs and bacon like they had never seen such things, which I realized with a sinking heart they probably hadn't. Not in months, maybe longer. Catherine was trying to calm them, but her own eyes were red. She had been crying. "What's wrong?" I asked. Samuel spun toward me. His face was flushed with anger. "You tell us. We wake up and Mama's gone. We thought she left us." "I was just in the washroom," Catherine said softly. "I was only gone 5 minutes." But 5 minutes was enough. These children had learned that people disappeared, that safety was an illusion, that nothing good lasted. Emma clung to Catherine's arm. The twins, Lucas and Lily, stood pressed against each other. Grace sat in the corner, knees pulled to her chest, rocking slightly. The younger ones looked confused, caught between fear and the smell of breakfast. Only Daniel seemed calm. He sat at the table, hands folded, waiting. Orphanage life had taught him patience. "Everyone sit down," I said. Not harsh, but firm. "Right now." They hesitated. Then, slowly, they moved to the long kitchen table. It was designed to seat 12. Yesterday it had been far too big. Today it was exactly right. Mrs. Brennan set plates in front of each child. Eggs, bacon, fresh bread with butter, more food than they had probably seen in a week. No one ate. They just stared. "What are you waiting for?" I asked. "Permission," Samuel said quietly. The word hit me like a fist. Permission. They were waiting for permission to eat food that was theirs, in their own home. I sat down at the head of the table. Catherine sat at the other end. I picked up my fork. "This is your food," I said. "You never need permission to eat in this house. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. If you're hungry, you eat. That's the rule. Understood?" Slowly, tentatively, they began to eat. What happened next was difficult to watch. The younger children ate too fast, their stomachs unused to abundance. Oliver, the 6-year-old, made himself sick and had to run outside. Sophie cried because she thought she had done something wrong. Baby Rose smeared eggs all over her face, and Lily tried to wipe it off while simultaneously protecting her own plate. But the worst was Grace. She took one bite of bacon and stopped, set down her fork, stood up and walked out of the kitchen. Catherine started to follow, but I stopped her with a gentle hand. "Let me." I found Grace in the front room, standing by the window, staring out at the snow-covered fields. Her small shoulders were shaking. I sat down on the floor nearby, not too close, just close enough that she knew I was there. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then, in a voice so small I almost missed it, she whispered, "Papa liked bacon." My throat tightened. This was the first thing she had said in over a month, and it was about her father. "He did?" I asked gently. A tiny nod. "What else did he like?" Silence. Then, "Coffee, with sugar, and Mama's singing." I waited, gave her space, didn't push. "He said I was his sunshine girl," she continued, her voice breaking. "But I'm not sunshine anymore. I'm all dark inside." I had to close my eyes against the pain of that statement. 8 years old, and already she understood grief better than most adults. "Grace," I said carefully, "can I tell you something?" Another small nod. "When my wife and son died, I felt dark inside too, for a very long time. So long I thought the darkness was just who I was now. But then yesterday, when I saw you and your brothers and sisters, I felt a little bit of light come back. Not much, just a spark, but it was there. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were huge in her small face. "You think Papa would be mad if I ate bacon?" she asked. "No, sweetheart. I think your Papa would want you to eat all the bacon in the world. I think he would want you to be full and warm and safe. That's what Papas want for their sunshine girls." A tear rolled down her cheek, then another. Then she was crying, really crying, for the first time since her father died. I opened my arms and she collapsed into them, sobbing against my chest. I held her while she cried, held her until the storm passed and she was just hiccuping softly. Then I carried her back to the kitchen, where Catherine's eyes filled with grateful tears. Grace ate her breakfast, every bite. That was the first victory. There would be many more battles to come. Over the next 2 weeks, the house became a strange battlefield, not of violence, but of wills, of fear against trust, of old wounds against new possibilities. Samuel was the hardest. He refused to call me anything but Sir or Mr. Hartwell. He did chores without being asked, as if trying to prove he was earning his keep. He watched me constantly, looking for signs of cruelty or deception. At night, I heard him checking on his siblings, making sure they were all still there. One afternoon, I found him in the barn, mucking out stalls. It was hard work, meant for grown men. His hands were blistered, his face red from effort. "You don't have to do this," I said. "I'm not a freeloader," he shot back. "You're not a farmhand either. You're 14. You should be in school. School costs money. Money I have. I don't want your money." He threw down the pitchfork. "I don't want any of this. I want my father back, and since I can't have that, I'll work for what you give us. Fair trade." I understood. He was trying to maintain dignity in a situation that had stripped it away. He was trying to feel like a man when the world kept treating him like a charity case. "Your father and I were partners once," I said. "Did you know that?" He paused. "Mama said something about it. We started the Helena mine together, 1870. I had the money, he had the knowledge. We were going to be rich together, build an empire." I leaned against the barn wall. "But then my wife got sick, needed expensive treatments. I had to buy out Elijah's share to pay the doctors. He understood. He never blamed me, but I blamed myself, because he could have been rich. Instead, he spent 15 years working for me, and when I had to close the mine, he lost everything." Samuel was listening now, really listening. "He died because I made him poor," I said. "That's the truth. So when you say you don't want my money, I understand. But Samuel, this isn't charity. This is a debt I can never fully repay. So please, let me try." He looked at me for a long moment, then quietly, "Did you love him? My father?" "Like a brother." "Then why didn't you save him?" The question I had been asking myself for months. The question that woke me up at night, that poisoned every good moment. "Because I didn't know he needed saving until it was too late," I said, "and I will regret that for the rest of my life." Samuel's jaw worked. He was fighting tears. 14-year-old boys weren't supposed to cry, especially not in front of men, but his eyes were bright with unshed emotion. "I tried to be the man of the house," he whispered. "After Papa died, I tried so hard, but I couldn't feed them. I couldn't keep them warm. I failed." "No, you kept them alive. You kept them together. That's not failure. That's heroism." He broke then, turned away so I wouldn't see his face, but his shoulders shook. I wanted to go to him, to put a hand on his back, but I knew he wasn't ready for that. So I just stood there, giving him space to grieve. When he finally turned back, his eyes were dry but exhausted. "I'll go to school," he said, "but only if I can still help here, in the mornings and evenings." "Deal." He picked up the pitchfork and went back to work. But something had shifted. Not friendship, not yet, but the first crack in the wall. Emma was different. Where Samuel was direct, Emma was subtle. She didn't fight me openly. Instead, she sabotaged. Small things at first. She would serve dinner and accidentally give me the smallest portion. She would leave my laundry in a heap instead of folding it. She would answer my questions with the bare minimum of words. But I saw the real issue one evening when I was reading to the younger children. They had gathered in the front room and I was going through a book of fairy tales. Emma sat in the corner pretending to sew, but I caught her watching me with her siblings, watching Catherine smile at something I said. After the children went to bed, I found Emma alone in the kitchen. "You're angry with me," I said. She stiffened. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do, and you have every right to be. I'm a stranger who married your mother. I've taken over your house, your family. You're 13. That's old enough to understand what this looks like." She turned to face me, and the fury in her eyes was startling. "You think you can replace him? You think because you have money and a big house that we'll forget our real father?" "No, I don't think that at all." "Then why are you here? Why did you marry Mama?" "Because your father asked me to take care of you." "You're lying. Papa didn't even know he was going to die." I pulled out the letter, the one Elijah had written. I handed it to her. She read it slowly, her lips moving. When she finished, tears were streaming down her face. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew. And he trusted me to do this. Not because I'm better than him, but because he couldn't do it himself." Emma crumpled the letter in her fist. "I miss him so much." "I know. And I'm scared Mama will forget him, that she'll fall in love with you and Papa will just be a memory." There it was. The real fear. Not that I would replace her father in her life, but in her mother's heart. "Emma, listen to me. Your mother loved your father deeply. That doesn't go away. Ever. I'm not here to take his place in her heart. I'm here to help carry the weight so she doesn't collapse under it. There's a difference." She looked up at me with those young, wounded eyes. "Promise?" "I promise. Your father will always be part of this family. We'll talk about him. Remember him. Honor him. He's not being erased. He's being remembered." She wiped her eyes. "Okay. Okay? I'll stop being mean to you, but I'm not calling you Papa. I wouldn't want you to." She almost smiled. Almost. Then she went upstairs, and I was alone in the kitchen, holding a crumpled letter and wondering if I was doing any of this right. The twins, Lucas and Lily, were a unit. Where one went, the other followed. But Lucas carried a burden that made every step painful. His left leg was twisted from birth, shorter than the right. He walked with a severe limp and couldn't run or play like the other children. Lily compensated by being his legs, his protector, his defender. When the other children played in the snow, Lucas watched from the window and Lily stayed inside with him. It was breaking both their hearts. I made inquiries, sent letters to doctors in Boston, in Chicago, in San Francisco. Finally, a response came from a surgeon named Dr. Whitmore in Helena. He specialized in orthopedic conditions. He believed Lucas could be helped with surgery and braces. Not cured, but improved. Enough to walk without pain, maybe even run. The cost was $500. Every penny of my savings after buying supplies for the family. I didn't hesitate. When I told Lucas and Lily, they were in the barn. Lucas was sitting on a hay bale watching Lily brush one of the horses. "Lucas," I said, "I need to talk to you about your leg." He went very still. "It's fine." "No, it's not. And that's okay. But there's a doctor who thinks he can help." Lily spun around. "Really?" "Really. It would require surgery, and it would hurt, and there's no guarantee, but there's a chance you could walk better, maybe even run." Lucas stared at me like I had just offered him the moon. "Why would you do that?" "Because you deserve to run." Lily launched herself at me, wrapping her arms around my waist. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." But Lucas didn't move. He just sat there, tears running down his face. "What if it doesn't work?" he whispered. "Then we try something else. But Lucas, even if it doesn't work, you're still valuable, still important, still loved. This isn't about fixing you. It's about giving you options." He nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll do it." The surgery was scheduled for 3 weeks later. In the meantime, Lucas started smiling more. started talking about what he would do when he could run, started believing in possibilities, and Lily stopped being his bodyguard and started being his sister again. Grace was still mostly silent, but she began to draw. I gave her paper and pencils, and she filled page after page with images, dark images at first, mines, rocks, a man buried. But slowly the pictures changed. She drew the house, the other children, Catherine. And one day she drew me. I was standing in a field, and the sun was shining behind me. At the bottom, in careful letters, she had written, "Mr. Nathaniel, our new papa." I found her in her room and knelt down beside her. "Grace, this is beautiful. But you know I'm not replacing your papa, right?" She nodded seriously. "I know. You're different. But you're still ours." Something in my chest cracked open. "Yes, I'm yours." She hugged me then, quick and fierce, then ran off to show Catherine her drawing. I sat alone in her room, holding that picture, and for the first time since Abigail died, I cried. Not from grief, from something else, something that felt almost like joy. The younger children adapted faster. Oliver stopped flinching when I walked into a room. Sophie started calling me Mr. Papa, which made everyone laugh. Michael brought me his drawings every evening. Baby Rose toddled after me everywhere, calling Nathaniel because she couldn't quite say my name. But then came the night that changed everything. It was 2 weeks into our new life. A blizzard hit, dropping temperatures to dangerous levels. The wind howled like a living thing. I made sure the fires were stoked, the animals secured, the house battened down. Around midnight, I heard crying. Not the ordinary fussing of a child, but the high, frightening wail of real distress. I ran to the girls' room. Catherine was already there, holding Rose. The baby was burning with fever, her small body convulsing. "How long?" I asked. "I don't know. I just heard her crying." Catherine's voice was pure terror. "Nathaniel, she's so hot." I touched Rose's forehead. She was on fire. This wasn't a simple cold. This was dangerous. "Mrs. Brennan," I shouted, "get cold water and cloths, now." The older children appeared in the doorway, frightened. Samuel pushed to the front. "What's wrong?" "Rose is sick. I need you to keep the others calm." But no one moved. They all crowded into the room, watching as Catherine and I stripped Rose down and began sponging her with cold water. The fever raged. Rose cried weakly, then stopped crying altogether. Her eyes rolled back. "She's seizing," Catherine gasped. I had seen this before. Fever seizures. They could be deadly if the temperature didn't come down. "The doctor," Emma said. "We need a doctor." "He's in town, 20 miles. In this storm we'd never make it." "Then what do we do?" Samuel demanded. "We can't just let her die." The room went silent. Let her die. The words hung in the air like a curse. "No," I said. "We don't let her die. We fight." For the next 4 hours, Catherine and I took turns sponging Rose with ice water. We forced medicine down her throat. We wrapped her in cool cloths and prayed. The children took shifts bringing fresh water, stoking the fire in the other rooms, keeping vigil. Around 3 in the morning, Rose stopped seizing. Her fever began to drop. By dawn, she was sleeping peacefully. The crisis passed. Catherine collapsed into a chair, shaking. I sat on the floor, my back against the wall, exhausted beyond measure. The children were scattered around the room, some sleeping, some watching. All of them had stayed the entire night. Samuel sat down next to me. We didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, "You could have sent us away. When she got sick, you could have told us to go back to our rooms." "Why would I do that?" "Because we're not really yours. We're just kids you took in." I looked at him, really looked at him, saw the question behind the question, the fear that we were temporary, that this was all conditional. "Samuel, last night when I thought Rose might die, do you know what I felt?" He shook his head. "Terror. The same terror I felt when my son died. The same terror any father feels when his child is in danger. Because she is mine. You all are. Not because of paperwork or contracts, but because the moment you walked into this house, you became part of my life. And I don't know how to explain it, but somewhere between the wedding and now, you stopped being Elijah's children. You became mine too, not instead of his, in addition to his." Samuel's eyes filled with tears. "Really?" "Really." He leaned against my shoulder, just rested there, and I put my arm around him. When Catherine saw us, she smiled through her exhaustion. And I realized something. I had come to Silver Creek to pay a debt, to fulfill a promise, to die with purpose. But somewhere along the way, these broken, hurting children had done something unexpected. They had given me a reason to live. 3 weeks after Rose's fever broke, a woman appeared at our gate. I was in the barn with Lucas, preparing for his upcoming surgery. We were talking about what to expect, trying to calm his nerves, when Mrs. Brennan came running. "Mr. Hartwell, there's a woman here. Says she needs to speak with you urgently. Says it's about Richard Ashford." The name hit me like cold water. Richard Ashford. My former business partner. The man who had betrayed me 5 years ago. The man who had sold company secrets to our competitors, costing me a mine and forcing me to fire 50 men, including Elijah. The man who had killed himself when I confronted him. "Where is she?" I asked. "At the front door. She won't come in. She looks half frozen." I found her standing in the snow, wrapped in a thin shawl. She was maybe 38, with dark hair streaked with gray and eyes that had seen too much hardship. I recognized her immediately. Victoria Ashford, Richard's widow. "Mrs. Ashford," I said carefully, "this is unexpected. I'm sorry to intrude, Mr. Hartwell. I know I'm the last person you want to see, but I have nowhere else to go." Her voice was steady, but I could see her hands shaking. From cold or fear, I wasn't sure. "Come inside," I said. "You're freezing." She hesitated. "I don't deserve your hospitality." "Maybe not, but you'll get it anyway." We went into the parlor. Mrs. Brennan brought tea. Catherine appeared, curious, and I introduced them. "This is Victoria Ashford," I said. "Wife of Richard Ashford, my former business partner." Catherine's eyes widened slightly. She knew the story, knew that Richard's betrayal had led to the mine closure that had led to Elijah's firing. But she said only, "Welcome, Mrs. Ashford." Victoria's eyes filled with tears at the kindness. "You shouldn't welcome me. My husband destroyed your lives." "Your husband made his choices," Catherine said quietly. "You made yours. They're not the same thing." We sat. Victoria clutched her teacup like a lifeline. "Why are you here?" I asked, not unkindly. "Because I'm being hunted." She took a shaky breath. "When Richard died, he left debts, gambling debts, $2,000 to men who don't forgive. They've been chasing me for 5 years. I've run out of places to hide." "And you thought I would help you? After what Richard did?" "No. I thought you would turn me away. But I had to try. Because I have nowhere left to go. No family, no friends, no money. I came here to beg for work. Anything. Cleaning, cooking, laundry. I'll sleep in the barn. I just need to disappear for a while." Catherine and I exchanged glances. This was complicated. Victoria was the widow of the man who had set off the chain of events that killed Elijah. The children, if they knew, would hate her. But she was also a desperate woman asking for help. "The children," I said. "They can't know who you are. Not yet." "I understand. And you'll work hard. This isn't charity." "I wouldn't accept charity." I looked at Catherine. She gave a small nod. "You can stay," I said. "There's a room above the barn. It's small but warm. You'll help Mrs. Brennan with the housework and the children. We'll pay you a small wage, enough to start saving for when you need to move on." Victoria's face crumpled. "Thank you. I'll work harder than anyone. I promise." "There's one more thing," Catherine said. "If you're going to be around our children, you need to understand something. This is a house of second chances. We don't talk about people's pasts unless they want to share. We don't judge. We just move forward. Can you do that?" "Yes, ma'am." And so Victoria Ashford joined our strange, broken household. The children were told she was a widow from Helena who needed work. Samuel was suspicious, but he accepted it. Emma welcomed her cautiously. The younger ones were just excited to have another adult around. Daniel was different. From the moment he met Victoria, something shifted in him. He followed her everywhere, helped her with chores, talked to her about everything. It took me a week to understand why. She reminded him of his mother. One evening I found them in the barn. Daniel was brushing one of the horses while Victoria mended a saddle blanket. They were talking quietly, and Daniel was smiling, really smiling, for the first time since he'd joined us. "She's teaching me to read better," he told me later. "Says every boy should know his letters." That's kind of her. She's sad, though, I can tell. Sometimes she cries at night. I hear her. People cry for lots of reasons, Daniel. Doesn't mean they're not okay. I know. I cried every night for a year after my parents died. But then I stopped. You think Mrs. Victoria will stop? I hope so. Me too. She deserves to be happy. Out of the mouths of children. Over the next weeks, Victoria became part of the rhythm of the house. She was good with us children, patient and kind. She taught Grace to sew, helped Emma with her reading, even got Samuel to smile once or twice. But I saw the guilt in her eyes, saw the way she flinched whenever Elijah's name was mentioned. She knew, maybe not all the details, but enough to understand that her husband's actions had hurt this family. One night, after the children were asleep, I found her sitting in the barn, crying. "Mrs. Ashford," I said gently. "Victoria, what's wrong?" "I don't deserve this," she whispered. "I don't deserve kindness. Richard destroyed you. He destroyed that man, Elijah Carter, and I stood by and let it happen." "Did you know what he was doing?" "No, but I should have. I should have questioned where the money was coming from. I should have stopped him. You can't take responsibility for someone else's sins." "Can't I? I benefited from them. I wore dresses bought with stolen money. I ate food purchased with your losses." I sat down next to her in the hay. "Victoria, my wife, used to say something. She said that guilt is only useful if it changes you. If it just makes you suffer, it's pointless. So the question is, has your guilt changed you?" She looked at me with red eyes. "I hope so." "Then that's enough. You're here. You're working. You're helping raise children who needed help. That's redemption. That's how you make it right." "But those children, if they knew who I was..." "We'll tell them, when the time is right. But Victoria, they're children who have been lied to and hurt enough. What they need now is stability. Honesty will come. But it doesn't have to come today." She nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mr. Hartwell, for giving me a chance. Call me Nathaniel, and you're welcome." As January turned to February, the house found its rhythm. The children went to school. Catherine managed the household with quiet efficiency. Victoria worked alongside Mrs. Brennan. And I tried to be the father none of them had asked for, but all of them needed. Then my heart gave out. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I was splitting wood behind the barn when the pain hit. Not gradual, not a warning, just a sudden crushing agony in my chest that drove me to my knees. I tried to call for help, but no sound came. The world grayed at the edges. I thought, this is it. This is how I die. Alone in the snow, having barely started the life I promised to build. But then Samuel was there. He must have been watching from the window. He was shouting, dragging me toward the house. His young face was terrified. "Mama! Mama! Help! Mr. Nathaniel's dying!" Catherine and Victoria came running. Between them, they got me inside, onto the sofa. The pain was unbearable. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "Someone get the doctor," Catherine ordered. "Now!" Samuel ran. The younger children gathered in the doorway, crying. Daniel clutched Victoria's hand. Emma knelt beside me, her face white. "Don't die," she whispered. "Please don't die. We just found you." I wanted to tell her I wasn't planning to, but I couldn't speak. The doctor came within an hour. He examined me, his face grave. When he was done, he pulled Catherine aside. I couldn't hear what he said, but I saw her face go pale. Later, when the pain had dulled to a manageable ache and I was resting in bed, she told me, "He says you need surgery, immediately. Your heart is failing, You have maybe 3 months without intervention. I know. The surgery is in Boston. It costs $3,000. You could die on the table. I know that too. Then why haven't you done it? I looked at her, this woman I had married out of duty, who had somehow become so much more. Because I was afraid. Afraid of dying alone in some hospital. Afraid of leaving you and the children with nothing. We wouldn't have nothing. We'd have each other. That's not enough. Yes, it is. She took my hand. Nathaniel, those children love you. Maybe they don't say it. Maybe they don't even realize it yet. But they do. And She paused. I need you. Not because of the house or the money, but because you're a good man trying to do right. And good men are rare. I'm not good, Catherine. I'm just trying. That's what makes you good. The door creaked open. Samuel stood there, his eyes red from crying. Behind him, all the other children crowded in, even baby Rose, held by Lily. We heard, Samuel said, about the surgery, about the money. It's all right, I said. We'll figure it out. No. He stepped forward. We'll figure it out. All of us. Together. Because that's what families do. Emma nodded. I have some jewelry Grandmama left me. We can sell it. I'll sell my horse, Samuel added. No, I said firmly. No. You're not giving up your things for me. Why not? Lucas demanded from his spot near the door. You were going to give up $500 for my leg. Fair's fair. The logic was unassailable and heartbreaking. Victoria stepped forward. I have something too. A ring, my wedding ring. It's worth about $1,000. Richard bought it when he still had money. I've kept it hidden from the creditors all these years. It's yours if you want it. I stared at her. Victoria, no. That's all you have left of him. He was a thief and a coward, she said quietly. This ring was bought with stolen money. Let it do something good for once. Let it save the man who gave me a second chance. The children gathered around the bed. These 9 souls I had taken in, this woman I had married, this widow I had sheltered, all of them looking at me with the same expression. Love. When had it happened? When had this collection of broken people become a family? All right, I said, my voice rough. I'll do the surgery, but I want something from all of you in return. What? Samuel asked. If I die, you take care of each other. Catherine manages the estate. Samuel, you help her. Emma, you watch the younger ones. All of you, you stay together. You stay a family. Promise me. One by one they promised. But Catherine leaned close and whispered, You're not going to die. I won't allow it. Despite everything, I smiled. Yes, ma'am. The surgery was scheduled for 3 weeks later. In the meantime, preparations were made. Money was gathered. Lucas's surgery was postponed. Victoria sold her ring. The children pooled their meager savings. And I spent every moment I could with them, reading to the younger ones, teaching Samuel about the business, helping Emma with her studies, sitting with Grace while she drew, playing with Rose and Sophie and Oliver and Michael, building a lifetime of memories in case 3 weeks was all I had left. On the last night before we were to leave for Boston, the whole family gathered in the front room. Catherine had made a special dinner. Afterward, we sat by the fire and Samuel cleared his throat. We wanted to give you something, he said, before you go. Emma brought out a package wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a book, a journal actually, and on every page one of the children had written or drawn something. Samuel had written, Thank you for teaching me that strength isn't about being alone. It's about letting people help. Emma, thank you for loving Mama and for letting us love Papa too. Grace had drawn a picture of all of us together. Underneath, our family. Lucas and Lily together. Thank you for believing we could be more than we were. The younger children had scribbled messages or drawn stick figures. Daniel had written simply, Thank you for showing me what a father should be. I couldn't speak, could barely see through the tears. Catherine put her hand on mine. You have to come back, she said. Because this story isn't finished yet. I looked at these faces, these beautiful, broken, healing faces. I'll come back, I promised, or I'll die trying. And in a farmhouse in Montana, on a winter night warmed by fire and love, a dying man found his reason to fight. Not for himself, but for the family he never expected and couldn't imagine living without. The train to Boston took 4 days. 4 days of watching Montana disappear behind us, replaced by endless plains, then forests, then cities I had never seen. 4 days of Catherine sitting beside me, her hand in mine, neither of us speaking much. 4 days of wondering if I was traveling toward salvation or just a more expensive death. Samuel came with us. He had insisted. At 14, he was tall enough to pass for 16, serious enough to be mistaken for older. He sat across from us in the private compartment I had purchased, watching the landscape blur past, his jaw set with determination. "You didn't have to come," I told him on the second day. "Yes, I did." "Why?" He looked at me directly. Those eyes, so much like Elijah's, it hurt. "Because if you die, someone needs to bring you home, and I'm the man of the family." "Samuel, I'm the—" "No." He cut me off, not rudely, but firmly. "You're sick. Mama's scared. That makes me the man right now. And when you're better, I'll go back to being the son. But right now, this is my job." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. She reached across and squeezed his hand. I had never been prouder of anyone in my life. Boston was gray and cold when we arrived. The city smelled of coal smoke and the sea. People rushed past on crowded streets, their faces anonymous and hard. After the quiet of Montana, it felt like being swallowed by something vast and indifferent. The hospital was a massive brick building on the edge of the city. Massachusetts General, one of the finest medical facilities in the country, also one of the most expensive. Dr. Whitmore met us in his office. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and steady hands. He examined me thoroughly, listening to my heart, checking my pulse, asking questions about pain and breathing and episodes of weakness. When he finished, he sat back and folded his hands. "Your heart is badly damaged," he said bluntly. "The left ventricle is enlarged. The valves are weakening. Without surgery, I give you 4 months, maybe less." Catherine's grip on my hand tightened. "And with surgery?" I asked. "With surgery, you might live another 20 years, or you might die on the table. The procedure is risky. We have to stop your heart, make the repairs, then restart it. Many patients don't survive the restart." "What are the odds?" "Honestly, 70% chance of death, 30% chance of full recovery." Samuel stood abruptly. "Those are terrible odds." "They are," Dr. Whitmore agreed, "but they're better than certain death." "When would you do it?" Catherine asked. Her voice was steady, but I felt her trembling. "Tomorrow. Your husband doesn't have time to waste." "Tomorrow." The word fell like a stone into water, sending ripples of fear through all of us. We checked into a small hotel near the hospital. 1 room for Catherine and me, 1 for Samuel. That night, we ate dinner in near silence. The food was fine, but none of us could taste it. After dinner, Samuel excused himself to his room. Catherine and I were left alone. She stood by the window, looking out at the gaslit streets below. I came up behind her, put my hands on her shoulders. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I." "What if you don't wake up? Then you take the children and go home. You run the estate, you raise them, you live." She turned to face me, and the anguish in her eyes was unbearable. "You don't understand. I can't lose another husband. I can't do this again. Catherine, no, listen to me." She grabbed my hands. "When Elijah died, I was broken, completely broken. The only thing that kept me alive was the children. They needed me, so I kept breathing. But I was hollow inside, just going through motions. And then you came. And slowly, piece by piece, you filled those hollow places. Not because you replaced Elijah, but because you reminded me what it felt like to not be alone, to have a partner, to have hope." Tears streamed down her face now. I had never seen her cry like this. She had been so strong, so controlled, since the day we met. "If you die tomorrow," she continued, "I don't know if I can survive it. Not because of the money or the house, but because I've started to love you, Nathaniel. And I don't know when it happened, but it did. And the thought of losing you is destroying me." I pulled her into my arms, held her while she sobbed against my chest, and I realized something that should have been obvious weeks ago. I loved her too. Not the desperate, passionate love I had felt for Abigail. That had been the love of youth, of first discovery, of building a life together from nothing. This was different, quieter, deeper. The love of two broken people who had found unexpected comfort in each other's brokenness. "Catherine," I said into her hair, "I love you. I should have said it sooner, should have told you every day, but I was afraid. Afraid it was too soon, afraid you didn't feel the same, afraid I was betraying Abigail's memory." She pulled back to look at me. "And now? Now I'm still afraid, but I'm more afraid of dying without you knowing how I feel. So here it is. I love you. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you love those children. I love the way you hum when you cook and the way you read to them at night. I love that you gave me a chance when you had every reason not to. And if I survive tomorrow, I promise to spend the rest of my life proving that your trust wasn't misplaced." She kissed me then, our first real kiss. Not the brief, formal peck at the wedding, but a true kiss, full of fear and hope and desperate love. When we pulled apart, she whispered, "You have to survive, because I'm not done with you yet." "Yes, ma'am." That night, we lay in bed holding each other, not making love, though God knows I wanted to, but simply being present, memorizing the feel of her breath, the warmth of her body, the sound of her heartbeat. If these were my last hours, I wanted to spend them like this, in the arms of a woman I loved, grateful for every unexpected blessing that had led me here. Morning came too soon. The hospital room was white and sterile. I changed into a thin gown that barely covered me. Catherine sat in a chair by the bed, her face pale but composed. Samuel stood by the window, his back to us, shoulders rigid. Dr. Whitmore came in with two nurses. "Are you ready, Mr. Hartwell?" No, I would never be ready, but I nodded anyway. "The procedure will take approximately 6 hours, he explained. "We'll keep your wife and son informed of progress. If all goes well, you'll wake up in the recovery room this evening." If all goes well. Such a small phrase to carry such enormous weight. I looked at Catherine, tried to memorize her face, the curve of her cheek, the green of her eyes, the way her hair fell across her forehead. "I'll be here when you wake up," she said. "I know." Samuel finally turned. He walked to the bedside, and I saw tears on his face. This boy who tried so hard to be a man. "Samuel," I said, "come here." He leaned down, and I pulled him into an embrace, felt his shoulders shake. "You're the bravest young man I've ever met," I whispered, "and if I don't make it, I need you to know something. I'm proud to have been your father, even for just a few weeks. That was enough." "Don't talk like that," he choked out. "You're coming back." "I'm going to try." He pulled away, wiped his eyes roughly. "I'll take care of Mama, and the others. I promise." "I know you will." The nurses began preparing me. One inserted a needle into my arm, the other checked equipment I didn't understand. Dr. Whitmore stood at the foot of the bed. "Last chance to change your mind," he said. I looked at Catherine one more time. She smiled through her tears. "Do it," I said. The medicine began to flow. I felt myself drifting, the room growing distant and hazy. The last thing I heard was Catherine's voice. "I love you, Nathaniel. Come back to me." Then darkness. I don't remember the surgery. Don't remember the moment they stopped my heart or the moment they tried to restart it. Don't remember the hours of cutting and stitching and desperate fighting to keep me alive. What I remember is the dream. I was standing in a field of snow, endless white stretching in all directions. The sky was gray, the air still. I was alone. Then I heard a voice, Elijah's voice. "You're not supposed to be here yet, friend." I turned. He stood a few yards away, looking exactly as I remembered. Strong, healthy, smiling that crooked smile of his. "Elijah?" My voice sounded strange, distant. "The one and only. Though I have to say, you look terrible." "Am I dead?" "Not yet. But you're close. Close enough that we can talk." I walked toward him. "I'm sorry. For everything. For the mine. For not finding Catherine sooner. For failing you." He waved a hand dismissively. "Stop apologizing. I never blamed you. Not for a second." "You should have." "Why? Because you made a business decision? Because you tried to save your wife?" "Nathaniel, I would have done the same thing. Hell, I did worse. I left Catherine and the kids to go work in a death trap because I was too proud to ask for help. If anyone should apologize, it's me. You were trying to provide for your family. And you're trying to make up for imaginary sins. We're both idiots." He grinned. "But you're an idiot who married my wife and took in my kids, so I guess I forgive you." Despite everything, I laughed. "I'm doing my best with them. I know. I've been watching." "You have?" "Of course. Did you think I'd miss Samuel finally smiling? Or Emma learning to trust again? Or Grace speaking?" His expression softened. "You're doing good work, Nathaniel. Better than I could have done." "That's not true." "It is. Because they needed something I couldn't give them anymore. They needed someone alive. Someone present. Someone who could show them that life goes on. You're doing that." I felt tears on my face. "I don't know if I'm strong enough. The surgery might not work. I might leave them anyway." Elijah stepped closer, put a hand on my shoulder. I felt the weight of it, solid and real. "Then fight. Fight like hell to get back to them. Because, Nathaniel, they need you. Catherine needs you. And honestly, you need them. You've been half dead for 10 years. Those kids brought you back to life. Don't waste that." "What if I fail?" "Then I'll be here waiting, and we can play cards for eternity while you complain about the unfairness of it all." He smiled. "But I don't think you're going to fail. You know why?" "Why?" "Because you're too stubborn to die. Always have been." The field began to fade. Elijah's form became translucent. "Wait," I called. "I need to know. Are you at peace?" His voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "I am, because my family is safe. Because you kept your promise. Go back, Nathaniel. Live the life I couldn't. And tell Catherine and the kids that I love them. Always." Then he was gone. The field disappeared, and I was falling through darkness, pulled by something I couldn't see but could feel. A tether, a lifeline. Voices, distant at first, then closer. "We're losing him. Inject another dose. His heart's not responding. Again, don't give up." Then, like a lightning strike, pain, brilliant, searing pain that tore through my chest. My heart lurched, stopped, lurched again, beat, beat, beat. "He's back! We've got a rhythm!" I tried to open my eyes but couldn't, tried to speak but my throat was full of tubes, tried to move but my body wouldn't respond. But I was alive. I was alive. Consciousness came in fragments, a bright light. Catherine's face above me. Samuel's voice saying, "Is he awake?" Hands holding mine, the smell of antiseptic. Then darkness again, but different this time. Not the void of death, but the healing darkness of deep sleep. When I finally woke fully, it was dark outside. A single lamp burned in the corner of the room. Catherine sat in a chair beside the bed, her head resting on her folded arms, asleep. I tried to speak. My throat was raw, my voice barely a whisper. "Catherine." Her head shot up. For a moment she just stared at me, as if afraid I was a hallucination. Then she was on her feet, leaning over me, her hands on my face. "You're awake. Oh God, you're awake." "How long?" 2 days. The surgery took 8 hours. You stopped breathing twice. Your heart stopped 3 times. Dr. Whitmore said," her voice broke. "He said he'd never seen anyone fight so hard to live. Had to. Made a promise." She laughed and cried at the same time. "You stubborn, wonderful man." Samuel appeared in the doorway. When he saw my eyes open, he rushed to the bedside. "Mr. Nathaniel, you did it? You actually did it? Told you I'd try." He grabbed my hand, squeezed it hard. "Don't ever scare us like that again." "Deal." Dr. Whitmore came in an hour later. He examined me, checked the incision on my chest, listened to my heart. "Remarkable," he said. "Your heart is beating strong and steady. The repair took. If you continue to heal at this rate, you'll make a full recovery." "How long until I can go home?" 2 weeks in the hospital. Then another month of limited activity. "But Mr. Hartwell, you need to understand something. You almost died. Multiple times. The next few months are critical. Any strain, any stress could undo everything we did." "I understand." He nodded and left. Catherine sat back down, still holding my hand. 2 weeks, she said. "Then we can take you home. Back to the children." The children. God, I missed them. Missed Grace's quiet drawings. Missed Samuel's serious conversations. Missed Emma's slow warming. Missed the chaos of the younger ones. "Tell me about them," I said. "What's been happening?" Catherine smiled. "Victoria's been wonderful. She's kept them calm, kept them busy. Lucas had his surgery 3 days ago. His leg, I mean. It went well. Dr. Whitmore contacted a colleague in Helena. Lucas is recovering now. Victoria says he's being very brave." "And the others?" "Emma's been reading to the younger ones every night. Grace drew you a picture. Samuel wrote you a letter. They all miss you terribly." "I miss them too." "Nathaniel, there's something else. Something important happened." I looked at her. "What?" "The night of your surgery, when we didn't know if you'd survive, Samuel told the other children who Victoria really is, that she's the widow of Richard Ashford, the man whose actions led to Elijah's death." My heart clenched. What did they say? At first they were angry, Emma especially. She said Victoria had been lying to them. But then Victoria told them the whole truth, about Richard's betrayal, about his suicide, about the debts and the running and the fear. And she told them that you and I had given her a second chance when no one else would, that we had shown her what forgiveness looked like. "And?" Catherine's eyes filled with tears again. "And Grace said, if Mr. Nathaniel can forgive, we can too." So they did. They forgave her, and Victoria broke down crying, said she didn't deserve their forgiveness. And Samuel said, "None of us deserve the good things we have. But we have them anyway. That's called grace." Nathaniel, our 14-year-old son, understands mercy better than most adults. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed. These children, these beautiful, broken, healing children. "How did I get so lucky?" I whispered. "You didn't," Catherine said softly. "You made a choice, to honor a promise, to do the right thing even when it was hard. And somehow that choice led to this, to us, to a family." 2 weeks in the hospital felt like 2 years, but Catherine and Samuel never left my side. They read to me, talked to me, helped me walk the halls when I was strong enough, reminded me why I was fighting. Finally, Dr. Whitmore declared me fit to travel. We boarded the train home on a bright March morning. Spring was coming, the world was thawing. The journey back to Montana took 5 days, longer than the trip out because I needed more rest stops, more time to sleep. But I didn't mind. Every mile brought me closer to home, to the children, to the life I had built. When we finally pulled into Helena Station, a wagon was waiting, and sitting in that wagon were 9 children, Victoria, Mrs. Brennan, and Daniel. The moment I stepped onto the platform, they erupted. Rose screamed my name. The younger ones jumped up and down. Grace held up a drawing. Emma was crying. Lucas stood on his own 2 feet, wobbling but standing, grinning from ear to ear. And Samuel. Samuel climbed down from the wagon and walked toward me with measured steps. When he reached me, he didn't say anything, just threw his arms around me and held on. "Welcome home, Father," he whispered. Father. Not Mr. Nathaniel, not Sir. Father. I held him and wept. The ride back to the estate was chaos. The children talked over each other, telling me everything that had happened. Lucas showed me how he could walk with his new brace. Grace presented her drawing, a picture of our family with me standing in the center, healthy and whole. Emma had baked a cake. The younger ones sang songs. Victoria sat quietly in the back of the wagon, but when our eyes met, she smiled, a real smile, the smile of someone who had found unexpected belonging. When we reached the house, they helped me inside. I was tired, more tired than I wanted to admit, but I made them show me everything. Lucas's exercises, Grace's new drawings, Samuel's progress in his studies, Emma's garden plans for spring. That evening, after dinner, the whole family gathered in the front room. I sat in my chair by the fire, Catherine beside me, the children scattered around on the floor and furniture. "I want to tell you something," I said. "While I was in surgery, I had a dream. I saw your father." Every child went still. Catherine's hand found mine. "He wanted me to give you a message," I continued. "He said he loves you, all of you, always. And he said he's at peace because you're safe, because you're together, because you're loved." Grace climbed into my lap, something she had never done before. "Did he say anything else?" "He told me to live the life he couldn't, to take care of you, to not waste the second chance I've been given." "Are you going to listen to him?" Samuel asked. I looked around the room. At these faces I had come to love more than I ever thought possible. At Catherine, who had become my partner in every sense. At Victoria, who had found redemption in service. At these children who had saved me as much as I had saved them. "Yes," I said, "I'm going to listen. I'm going to live, really live, and I'm going to spend every day grateful for the family I never expected and don't deserve but somehow have anyway." Emma stood up. "Then we have something for you, too." She left the room and returned with a wooden box. Inside was a legal document. "We talked to the lawyer in town," Samuel explained, "and we had him draw this up. It's an adoption paper. For all of us. We want you to be our legal father, not just our stepfather, our real father." I couldn't breathe. "You want me to adopt you?" "All of us," Emma said. "Even though we already have a father in our hearts. We want you there too. Is that okay?" I looked at Catherine. She was crying again, but smiling. "They asked me first. I told them it was their decision." "And Daniel too," Lily added. "We asked him. He wants to be adopted by Mr. Nathaniel and Mrs. Catherine both." Daniel nodded shyly. "If that's all right?" I couldn't speak, could only nod. Catherine took the paper, signed it, then handed me the pen. With shaking hands, I signed my name, Nathaniel Hartwell, and below it I added, "Father of 10." Because that's what I was. Not a stranger who had married their mother, not a man paying a debt, but their father, chosen, wanted, loved. That night, after the children were finally asleep, Catherine and I stood on the porch, looking out at the snow-covered fields. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't come to Silver Creek?" she asked. "Every day. Do you regret it?" I turned to face her, this woman who had become my anchor, my partner, my love. Not for a single second. I came to Silver Creek to die, but instead I learned to live. Because of you. Because of them. She leaned against me. "We learned to live because of you, too." Spring came to Montana with a violence of color. The snow retreated, revealing green grass and wildflowers. The creek that ran through our property thawed and sang. Birds returned, filling the mornings with sound. And with spring came healing. Lucas walked without his brace for the first time in May. Just a few steps, but they were his steps, unassisted. When he made it across the room, the whole family cheered. Lily cried. Victoria clapped her hands. And Lucas stood there, grinning, finally believing that his body didn't have to be a prison. Grace spoke more each day. Full sentences now. She talked about her father without crying, talked about her dreams for the future. She wanted to be an artist, she told me one evening. Wanted to paint pictures that made people feel things. "Then you'll be an artist," I said. We'll get you lessons, materials, whatever you need. Really? Really? She hugged me tight. I love you, Papa Nathaniel. Papa Nathaniel, a compromise between honoring her first father and accepting me. It was perfect. Samuel turned 15 in April. We threw him a birthday party, his first in 2 years. He tried to act too grown-up for celebrations, but I saw him smile when Emma brought out the cake, saw him laugh when the younger ones tackled him with hugs. Afterward, we sat on the porch together, just the two of us. 15, I said, almost a man. Almost. Your father would be proud of you. He was quiet for a moment. I think about him every day, but it doesn't hurt as much anymore. Is that wrong? No. It means you're healing. The love doesn't go away. It just makes room for other things, other people. He looked at me. Like you? Like me. I'm glad you married Mama. I didn't think I would be, but I am. I'm glad too. And Papa Nathaniel, I know I call you Father now, but I wanted you to know it's not because I'm replacing my first dad. It's because I'm lucky enough to have had two. I pulled him into a hug, this young man who had grown up too fast but was finally learning to be a boy again. Emma bloomed that spring, literally. She planted a garden behind the house and spent hours tending it, flowers mostly, roses and lilies and daisies, but also vegetables, practical things mixed with beautiful things. Like our family, Catherine observed one day, watching Emma work. What do you mean? We're practical things and beautiful things all mixed together. We're broken pieces that somehow make a whole. She was right. We were a patchwork family, stitched together from loss and desperation and unexpected grace. But we were whole. Victoria stayed. We offered to pay off her debts, but she refused. I need to do this myself, she said. Need to earn it. But I'd like to stay. If you'll have me. Not as a servant, as family. You've been family since the day you arrived, Catherine told her. And she was. She taught the children, helped with the house, and in June she formally adopted Daniel. He was Daniel Ashford now, a boy who had lost everything and found a mother who had done the same. The night of the adoption, Daniel came to me in the study. Mr. Nathaniel, can I ask you something? Of course. You saved Mrs. Victoria when you didn't have to, even though her husband hurt you. Why? I thought about it carefully. Because hurting her wouldn't have fixed what Richard did. It would have just created more pain. And I've learned that healing is better than revenge, that forgiveness is stronger than anger. Your new mother needed a second chance. I had the power to give it to her. So I did. He nodded slowly. When I grow up, I want to be like you. Daniel, be better than me. Be the man who doesn't need second chances because he gets it right the first time. He grinned. I'll try. The children thrived. All of them. Oliver lost his fear of men. Sophie stopped having nightmares. Michael's drawings grew brighter. Baby Rose grew into a chattering, energetic 3-year-old who ruled the house with tiny fists and an enormous smile. And me? I grew stronger. My heart healed. The scar on my chest faded from angry red to pale white. Dr. Whitmore examined me in August and declared me in excellent health. Whatever you're doing, he said, keep doing it. What I was doing was living, really living. I worked the farm with Samuel, read to the children at night, took long walks with Catherine, played with the little ones, taught the older ones about business and responsibility and kindness. I was being a father, and it was the hardest, most rewarding thing I had ever done. In September, Catherine told me she was pregnant. We were sitting by the creek, watching the water flow past. She had been quiet all day, and I thought something was wrong. Nathaniel, she said softly, we're going to have a baby. I stared at her. What? A baby. I'm 3 months along. I wanted to be sure before I told you. A baby. Our baby. Not Elijah's, not Abigail's. Ours. I started to cry. Great, heaving sobs of joy. Catherine held me, laughing and crying too. Are you happy? She asked. I didn't think I could be this happy. I didn't think I deserved it. We deserve it. We've earned it. Through pain and loss and choosing to keep going, we've earned this." When we told the children, they erupted in excitement. Emma immediately started planning the nursery. Grace wanted to paint pictures for the baby's room. The younger ones argued about names. Samuel just smiled and said, "Another sibling. Good. We need even numbers for chores." Even Victoria cried, "A baby. New life. New beginnings." That's what it was, a new beginning. Not an erasure of the past, but a continuation, a sign that life went on, that love didn't end, it multiplied. The baby was born in March of 1886, a daughter. We named her Hope Abigail Elijah Hartwell, hope for the future. Abigail for my first wife. Elijah for Catherine's first husband, a name that honored where we had been and where we were going. She was perfect, tiny and pink and screaming with life. The children crowded around, desperate to hold her. Even Samuel, who tried to act too mature for baby nonsense, couldn't stop smiling when she wrapped her tiny hand around his finger. Catherine was radiant, tired, but glowing with happiness. When the midwife finally left us alone, I sat beside the bed and looked at this family I had somehow acquired. 10 children now. 11 if you counted Hope, plus Victoria and Mrs. Brennan and Daniel. A household of 15 people, all bound together by choice and love. "We did it," Catherine whispered. "We built a family from broken pieces." "You built it," I said. "I just tried to help." "No, we built it together. That's how families work." That summer, we held a celebration. Not for any specific reason, just because we were together and alive and grateful. We invited the whole town, set up tables in the yard, cooked enough food to feed an army. The children ran wild. Victoria laughed for what might have been the first time since her husband died. Samuel and Emma organized games. Grace painted a banner that said the Hartwell family, with pictures of all of us. Even the mayor came, a portly man named Henderson who had known me for years. "Nathaniel," he said, pulling me aside, "I have to say, when I heard you married a widow with 9 children, I thought you'd lost your mind." Maybe I did. But look at this. He gestured at the chaos around us, children laughing, adults talking, music playing. You didn't just gain a family, you created something, a home, a real home. It wasn't me, it was all of them. They saved me more than I saved them. He clapped me on the shoulder. That's what love does. It saves us, even when we don't deserve it. As the sun set, I stood on the porch, watching my family. Catherine sat in a chair, nursing Hope. Emma and Victoria were cleaning up tables. Samuel was teaching the younger boys to throw horseshoes. Grace was showing her paintings to anyone who would look. Lucas was running, actually running, chasing Lily through the grass. This was my life now. Not the life I had planned, not the life I thought I deserved, but the life I had been given. A second chance, a new beginning. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything. That night, after the guests left and the children were asleep, Catherine and I sat on the porch together. Baby Hope slept in my arms. The night was warm, full of cricket song and starlight. "Do you ever think about that day in Silver Creek?" Catherine asked. "When you offered to marry me?" "Every day." "Do you regret it?" I looked at her, at this woman who had given me purpose and love and a reason to live. "Not for a single moment." "You?" "Never." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "You kept your promise, Nathaniel. The promise you made to Elijah. You took care of us, gave us a home, gave us a future. We took care of each other." "Yes, we did." We sat in comfortable silence. Hope stirred in my arms, making the small sounds babies make. I looked down at her tiny face and saw the future. Saw her growing up surrounded by brothers and sisters. Saw her learning from Victoria and Mrs. Brennan. Saw her becoming part of this strange, beautiful, broken, perfect family. "I have a confession," I said quietly. "What?" "When I came to Silver Creek, I thought I was dying. I thought I had maybe a year. I married you because I wanted to do one good thing before the end. But Catherine, you and those children, You didn't just give me a year. You gave me a life. A real life. And I don't know how to thank you for that." She took my hand. "You don't thank us. You just keep living. Keep being the man who chose mercy over bitterness. Keep being the father those children need. Keep being my husband, my partner, my love. That's how you thank us." "I can do that. I know you can. You've been doing it all along." Hope yawned and settled back to sleep. Somewhere inside, one of the children laughed in their dreams. The night air smelled of grass and flowers and home. I thought about Elijah, wondered if he could see this, see what his trust had created, see the family that had grown from the seeds of his friendship and sacrifice. I'd like to think he could. I'd like to think he was smiling, because I had kept my promise. Not perfectly, not without mistakes, but I had kept it. I had taken care of his family, had loved them, had given them the life he couldn't, and in return they had given me something I never expected. They had taught me that love doesn't end. It transforms. It multiplies. It grows in the spaces between loss and hope, between grief and joy, between yesterday and tomorrow. They had taught me that family isn't just blood. It's choice. It's showing up every day and choosing to stay, choosing to forgive, choosing to love even when it's hard. They had taught me how to live, and that was the greatest gift of all. As the night deepened and the stars wheeled overhead, I held my daughter and sat with my wife and felt grateful. Grateful for second chances, grateful for broken people who fit together, grateful for a widow who had trusted me, grateful for children who had accepted me, grateful for a friend who had believed in me even after death, grateful for this winter that had taught me how to find spring. "Thank you, Elijah," I whispered into the darkness. "Thank you for trusting me with them. I'll take care of them, all of them, for the rest of my life." Catherine squeezed my hand. Hope slept on. The house behind us was full of breathing, dreaming children, and I knew with absolute certainty that I was exactly where I was meant to be. The promise was kept. The morning sun broke over Hartwell Estate, casting golden light across fields of wheat ready for harvest. I stood on the porch, coffee in hand, watching my family wake to a new day. Samuel, 19 now, rode in from the north pasture. He had taken over management of the farm operations last year and proven himself more capable than I ever was. He dismounted, saw me, and waved. No longer a boy carrying the weight of the world. A man at peace with his past and excited for his future. Emma emerged from the garden, basket full of vegetables. At 18, she had become the heart of our household. She taught at the town school 3 days a week and spent the rest of her time here, nurturing both plants and people. She had received a marriage proposal last month from the minister's son. She was considering it, carefully, the way she did everything. Lucas ran past, chasing his twin sister Lily across the yard. Ran, without a limp, without pain. The surgery had worked beyond our wildest hopes. He was training to become a veterinarian, fascinated by the animals he had once only been able to watch from windows. Grace sat beneath the oak tree, easel before her. At 13, her paintings had begun to sell in Helena galleries. She captured light and shadow in ways that made people stop and stare. The silent, traumatized girl was gone. In her place, an artist who saw beauty everywhere. The younger ones scattered around the property. Oliver worked in the stable. Sophie helped Mrs. Brennan in the kitchen. Michael painted signs for the farm stand. They had all found their places, their purposes, and hope. 5 years old now, running through the morning with baby James toddling behind her. James, our son, born 2 years after Hope, the boy Catherine and I had made together. The living symbol that our love wasn't just duty or gratitude, but something real and growing. Victoria appeared from the barn, Daniel beside her. The boy was 17 now, nearly a man. He had Elijah's eyes, I realized, had always had them. When we told him the truth about his father 3 years ago, he had cried, not from anger, but from relief. He finally understood why he felt connected to Samuel and the others. They were his siblings, his blood. He had chosen to keep the name Ashford, honoring the man who had raised him despite everything. But he called me Uncle Nathaniel, and he visited Elijah's grave every Sunday, talking to the father he never knew. Catherine stepped onto the porch beside me, our son James in her arms. She was 42 now, silver threading through her dark hair, more beautiful than the day I met her. Time had softened the edges of her grief without erasing it. She carried Elijah in her heart alongside me. There was room for both. "Big day," she said, "the biggest." Today we were breaking ground on the Elijah Carter Memorial School, a school for children from families who couldn't afford education. Samuel's idea, funded by the estate built on land Elijah and I had purchased together 30 years ago. A school where no child would be turned away for lack of money, where opportunity wouldn't depend on circumstance, where Elijah's belief in second chances would live on in every student who walked through its doors. The whole town would be there, the mayor, the minister, families from 3 counties. They were coming to celebrate not just a building, but a legacy. "Do you think he knows?" Catherine asked softly. "Elijah? Do you think he sees what we built?" I looked at our children, all of them, the ones Catherine had brought, the ones we had made, the ones we had chosen, a family that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. "I think he knows," I said, "and I think he's proud." Samuel called up from the yard. "Father, we need to leave in an hour." Father. The word still made my heart swell, not because it replaced anything, but because it meant I had succeeded. I had kept the promise, had raised them, loved them, given them the life Elijah couldn't, and in return they had saved me, had pulled me back from the edge of death, not just physically but spiritually, had taught me that life after loss was possible. That family wasn't about bloodlines but about showing up, about choosing each other every single day. Catherine leaned against me. "No regrets?" "Not one." "Even when Samuel accidentally burned down the hay barn?" "Not even then." "When Emma eloped for 3 days before changing her mind?" Character building. "When the twins painted the chickens blue?" I laughed. "That was actually impressive." She smiled, then, serious again. "Thank you, Nathaniel, for coming to Silver Creek that day, for taking a chance on a desperate widow, for loving us when you had every reason to walk away." "Catherine, you've got it backwards. Thank you for giving me a reason to live, for showing me that second chances are real, for building this beautiful, chaotic, perfect life with me." Baby James squirmed, wanting down. Catherine set him on the porch and he toddled toward the steps. I scooped him up before he could tumble. "Dada!" he squealed, grabbing my nose. Dada, a word I never thought I'd hear again after Henry died. But here it was, proof that joy could return. That winter could become spring. An hour later we loaded into wagons and headed to town, all 15 of us, the Hartwell family, a patchwork of loss and love, stitched together by faith and stubbornness and grace. As we rode, I looked back at the estate, at the house that had been empty for 10 years before Catherine filled it with life, at the fields we had worked together, at the barn the twins had painted, at the garden Emma tended, at the tree where Grace painted. This was my legacy, not the silver mines, not the money. These people, this family, this love. And when my time finally came, whenever that would be, I would die knowing I had lived, really lived, had taken the broken pieces of 2 families and built something whole, had honored a promise and found salvation in the keeping of it. The sun climbed higher, the horses pulled us toward town. My family laughed and talked around me, and I was grateful for every moment, every struggle, every tear and triumph, for the winter that had taught me to find spring, for the promise that had saved my life. The end.